Welcome back to Perspectives. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the Israeli Medical Corps has become famous for being a pioneer in providing assistance to foreign countries in need. The IDF's field hospital was even the first in the world to be granted Grade 3 status. That's the highest possible status for best medical team by the United Nations. Now, they're participating in an exercise in Romania aimed at enhancing cooperation between Israel and EU countries. It's the largest training exercise for field hospitals in Europe and is the most operational drill Israel's Medical Corps has ever been involved in. Now, while sharing a variety of knowledge with overseas armies back on Israeli turf, collaboration in the medical sphere on a civilian capacity also taking place. Since 2001, Israel's National Emergency Service, known as Magen David Adom, is attracting some 500 people a year to work as volunteers with the Israeli Ambulance Service. And joining me in studio, Yonatan Yagodovsky from MDA Israel and two former volunteers, Daniel Roth and Dana Gilden. Great to have you all with us.
Hello.
Now, Yonatan, of course, you're the official here from an MDA capacity. I understand that this international program actually began more than a decade ago on a much smaller scale till growing to a national level, which allowed, I think it was in 2001, allowed people to come from all over the world and volunteer with the Israel's National Ambulance Service. How did that develop? Why did it extend to volunteers around the world?
Well, we started with a very small group of volunteers from Canada just shortly after the first Gulf War in 1991. It was a joint venture between Magen David Adom and Aliyah movement of the Jewish Agency. And after a few years, we realized that it's becoming an attraction for young students who are looking for a meaningful experience in Israel.
Okay.
So we opened up the program, and more people came in. Yochai Porat, our dear friend who was killed in a terror attack years ago, was the coordinator of this program. And he brought it up to the level that it is now over the last 15 years of it's a year-long program. Each session is about 2 months, including training of 10 days, and then
the
practical
program itself isn't a year-long. There are several intakes of programs throughout the course of the year.
Correct. About 10 different timetables along the year. How
does it work, Yonatan, if people can't speak Hebrew?
Well, usually they get to know basic Hebrew. The training is in English or in French or in Spanish, according to the trainees. And we teach them also the normal Israeli terms, in Hebrew terms, in emergency medicine, and they get along very, very well with our team members.
Okay, now, Daniel, you have dual citizenship, both American and Israeli, and you decided to join this program after living in Israel for 3 years. What attracted you to volunteer with the ambulance service?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to join the Army. They said I had aged out, that there was an age limit, so I did my research, and I thought, what's the next best thing that I could do? So after doing my research and figuring it out, I saw that the Magen David Adom program in English was something that was available to me, and I said to myself, how can you contribute the best of your abilities, your time, and your effort to something that's meaningful? And that I can tell you right now, it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. Okay,
not only meaningful, but I understand that in your first week in the field, you found yourself as a first responder in a terror attack. What can you tell us?
In January 2015, about 4 days on the job, we got a call. We were in Tel Aviv that a terrorist had attacked multiple people on a bus. We got to the scene. My team was the first ones there. We found the injured victims bleeding profusely, just in dire straits. So we got one of the victims into an ambulance, and I thought my job at that point was already done. Unfortunately, I got to the second ambulance, and I saw it had been covered in blood, and there was a woman inside, bleeding profusely. At that moment, something kicked in. My instincts, some kind of primordial force within inside me. I said, we have to save this woman. So I remembered all my training. I got her oxygen. I got her gauze pads. I did everything that I could to help her save her life. Luckily, there was an actual doctor on the scene. He came. He was on the ambulance with us, and he instructed me.
An actual doctor on the scene. So these are the kinds of questions, I suppose, Yonatan, that spring to mind when you're bringing people in from overseas. Daniel just happened to be here for 3 years. But some of the kind of scenes that they're finding themselves themselves in. The first week on the field is at a terror attack. Not only a unique program, but unique circumstances. How do you prepare these volunteers for that?
We give them a very hard 10 days of training from early morning to early night, give them simulations, try to explain to them what they're going to expect, because to each and every volunteer, the first patient will be the most meaningful one. It can be not serious or extremely serious. And you try to give them the tools. They're never alone. They're always with other people from Magen David Adom who are guiding them, escorting them, and letting them feel that they are not alone.
Right.
And altogether, we have debriefing after that. We have people looking after them, supervising the entire program. And the fact is that it's an amazing, successful program.
Right. And there are several programs that are offered to people from abroad, Dana, one of which that you were also involved in. You both did the MDA program, but instead of spending your gap year in a debaucherous Euro trip like many people do, you decided to really extend that out. You did the MDA program, and then you also did a program where you get to experience the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, in a program called Marva, something that, of course, Israelis conscripted into the army at 18 years old. Why did you decide not to go to Europe and to do what Israelis have to do by law?
At the time, I had signed up to go on a year program to Israel, and the program offers lots of different things like MDA, kibbutz experience, or the army. And I was somehow drawn to the army experience. I felt a connection to it, having learned a lot about it back home in Australia. I went to a Jewish day school, so I was always learning about what happened in Israel, always told about the army, but you never really had that proper understanding of what it must have felt like.
Sure.
And I thought, what an amazing opportunity to know, and I had a lot of cousins who'd done it and who were doing it. And it seemed like a great way to...
We're seeing pictures of you now up on the screen of your experience there, shooting a gun. These are the kinds of experiences, Dana, I suppose I'd like you to paint a picture of for us, because you come from Australia, a long way from Israel, a very different context there. And here you are learning how to fire an M16. What are some of the visceral memories that you can tell us about?
It's kind of mind-boggling a little bit. It's something that you can't even really put your finger on and explain. All I remember is thinking, I can't imagine having to do this. Like, the thought kept going through my mind, how is this something that people my age have to do? You know, there were situations where they'd wake you up in the middle of the night, asking where your gun is, and you forget that they've actually taken it from you. And it's a mental game, the whole thing, but constantly.
So, Jonathan, I suppose to you, is the idea of these programs, I suppose you can only speak to the MDA program, of course it's to give people from overseas, from what I understand, an immersive experience of what it's like to be an Israeli in a unique context or circumstance that, of course, you can't understand abroad. But is the idea to garner sympathy for Israel, to get people to move to Israel? Of course, it's open to Jewish people only.
Well, I think the main concept is to tie the ties stronger with Israel and people in diaspora that support Israel, and Israel is important to them. And giving a unique experience, because, for example, in Magen David Adom or in Marva, you meet so many people that you couldn't have met in any other way. Maybe in university, but there you're studying. Here you do actual work. You assist people. You work with Israelis. You go to the homes of Israelis and see how they react when they're not well and so on, and you give from yourself. And this is, I think, the main purpose. So let's if in addition people come and make aliyah or continue to study and so on, it's
today actually happens to be a national aliyah day, celebrating, meaning immigrants, Jewish people that come to Israel. That happens to be, I suppose, unique. They were talking about this today. But Daniel, I want to talk about how these skills that Jonathan pointed to, if you did learn anything or any life-changing experiences, because I do understand that you actually witnessed or helped bring somebody back to life.
Correct. We had one call. It was the end of our shifts, about 3 months into my experience. It was at the Dizengoff Center, then the largest mall in Tel Aviv. We got there. We were escorted by a security guard up to the victim. He was suffering from, I think, a cardiac arrest. He had no pulse. He was unconscious. And I thought to myself, this man is probably going to die. Just a natural reaction. So when we got there, luckily there was a medical professional already on the scene that was performing CPR. And then we applied the defibrillator to the gentleman. It did not work. We continued with CPR, and then the second shock revived him, much to my surprise.
Wow.
I was completely shocked.
What does something like that, how does that change you?
Right, so when you see the fragile balance between life and death, it has an imprint in your mind for the rest of your life. And you can see just how impactful the work that we do, because it is important, and it does provide a lot of significance for people who are volunteering.
What did you come away with from these programs? What kind of life-changing experiences or skills did you learn?
Definitely learned, I'd say, on something like Marva, the army program. You learn these skills like discipline and just this sort of teamwork that you may not get, just like you were saying, in university or just in day-to-day life. I think, you know, also in Magen David Adom, especially making the decision to move to Israel, you see how, you know, all these people are helping each other in that community, and it definitely, you know, has something to do with wanting to be here, and you see how everything works, and I think it.
Well, it sounds like a unique experience, and certainly many of the stories that you shared, Daniel, I'm sure people don't see in their whole lives, never mind in, what, 4 months you were part of this program for?
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Daniel, Dana, Jonathan, appreciate that insight. Thank you for being with us here on Perspectives. All right, moving on.